The sun was hot that afternoon. Cars moved slowly on the empty road. Officer Jack Daniels sat inside his police car, sipping cold coffee. He was young, only 26, and had been in the force for just over a year. He wore his uniform with pride. His badge was shiny. His boots were polished. Today, he told himself, he would prove that he was tough and smart. He looked around with sharp eyes. Then he saw it. A black car driving slowly, very slowly, down the side street. The car had tinted windows. It didn't look like trouble, but something about it made Daniels suspicious. He turned on his siren. Blue and red lights flashed. The black car kept moving for a few more seconds before stopping near a sidewalk. Daniels stepped out of his car and walked toward the black vehicle. Inside, an older man sat calmly behind the wheel. He had a strong face, gray hair, and eyes that looked tired, but wise. He didn't look afraid. He simply rolled down the window. "Good afternoon, officer," the man said politely. Daniels didn't reply. He looked at the license plate, then back at the man. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Daniels asked sharply. "No, sir," the man answered calmly. "I wasn't speeding." Daniels nodded slowly. "Your taillight is broken," he said. "And you were driving too slow. You're blocking traffic." "There's no traffic," the man said, looking around. Daniels frowned. "Don't talk back to me, sir. License and registration." The man handed over his documents without a word. Daniels glanced at them. The name read, Marcus Hill. Daniels didn't recognize the name. He tossed the documents onto the roof of the black car and crossed his arms. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm going home. I was visiting a friend," the man replied. Daniels looked him up and down. "What's in the trunk?" "Just some old tools," the man said. "You can check if you like." Daniels stepped back, then hit the radio on his shoulder. "Calling for backup," he said loudly. The man raised an eyebrow. "Is that really necessary?" Daniels didn't answer. He walked to the back of the car and tapped on the trunk. The man unlocked it. Inside were a few boxes and tool kits. Nothing strange. Still, Daniels didn't feel satisfied. He wanted control. He wanted power. This man was too calm, too confident. When backup arrived and another young officer named Ricky, Daniels whispered something in his ear. Then he came back and told the man, "Step out of the car." The man looked surprised. "Have I done something wrong?" "I said, step out of the car," Daniels repeated louder, now with one hand on his gun. The man slowly opened the door and got out. He was tall and well-built for his age. He stood straight, not like a criminal, but like a soldier. Daniels pushed him against the car roughly. "You're making a mistake," the man said quietly. Daniels smiled. "Oh yeah? What mistake?" "You don't know who I am," the man replied, "but you'll find out." Daniels laughed. "I don't care if you're the mayor, you're not above the law." A small group of people had now gathered nearby. Someone began recording the scene on their phone. "Look at this guy," Daniels shouted loudly. "Thinks he's special." The man said nothing. His hands were behind his back. He didn't fight. He didn't raise his voice. Officer Ricky looked at the ID again. His eyes grew wide. "Jack," he whispered. "This guy..." "He's General Marcus Hill." Daniels turned to him. "General who?" "General Hill. He's a retired U.S. Army general. I've seen him on the news." Daniels' smile faded. He looked back at the man who now stood silently, watching him. "I told you," the man said. "You were making a mistake." Daniels felt a wave of heat rise in his face. He looked around. The crowd was still filming. Whispers were spreading. "Should we let him go?" Ricky asked quietly. Daniels hesitated. His pride was on the line. He had already pushed this man. He had shouted at him. The cameras were still rolling. "No," Daniels said stiffly. "He was resisting. We'll take him in." General Hill raised an eyebrow. "Resisting? I didn't even move." You were disrespectful, Daniels snapped. Now turn around. The general obeyed. Daniels cuffed him, hands tight behind his back. The crowd was no longer quiet. Someone shouted, "He didn't do anything!" Another voice said, "He's a hero! That's General Hill!" Daniels dragged the man toward the police car. The general looked back at the phones pointed at him. "You'll want to save that video," he said calmly. "They'll need it later." Ricky stayed frozen. He didn't help. His hands shook a little. He knew they had crossed the line. Daniels opened the back door and pushed General Hill inside. "We're done here," he said to the crowd. "Move along." But no one moved. No one stopped filming. As Daniels drove away, he glanced at the rearview mirror. The general sat silently, looking out the window. His face was still calm, too calm. Daniels felt a strange chill. For the first time, he wondered, what if I really did mess up? The police station was quiet when Officer Daniels brought the general inside. The air felt heavy. Daniels walked in with confidence, but a few officers looked at him strangely. Some had already seen the video online. Whispers followed them as they passed through the hallway. Daniels pushed open the door to the small booking room. He sat General Hill on a bench and locked the cuffs to the metal bar behind him. "You'll sit here until we figure out what to charge you with," Daniels said. General Hill didn't respond. He simply looked ahead, calm and still. His hands were behind his back, but his dignity was not broken. He didn't look like a man in trouble. He looked like a man waiting. Officer Ricky stepped in slowly. He had stayed quiet the whole ride. "Back!" Now he was nervous. "Jack," Ricky whispered, "maybe we should let him go." Daniels frowned. "Why? Because he's got some fancy title?" "No," Ricky said, "because he's a decorated war hero. Look him up, General Marcus Hill. He served in the Middle East, led peace missions, trained officers like us. He's respected." "People know him," Daniels scoffed. "I don't care. He gave me attitude. That's enough." "He didn't," Ricky said quietly. "He just stayed calm." Daniels ignored him. He walked to the computer and typed in the general's name. It only took a few seconds. There it was. General Marcus Hill, retired U.S. Army, served 32 years, led 4 missions in conflict zones, awarded 3 medals for bravery, key advisor to the president during national emergencies. Now works with a program training young police officers. Daniels stared at the screen. Then he glanced back at the man sitting on the bench, the same man who now sat in handcuffs. Because of him. "Is this real?" Daniels asked, but his voice was softer now. The door opened. It was Sergeant Lopez, an older officer, respected in the department. He looked at Daniels, then at the man on the bench. His eyes went wide. "Is that General Hill?" he asked. Daniels nodded slowly. "Yes." Lopez walked over and uncuffed the general immediately. "Sir, I'm so sorry," he said. "This shouldn't have happened." General Hill stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't show anger. He just looked at Daniels. "Sometimes power makes people forget who they are," he said calmly. Daniels felt his throat tighten. "I didn't know who you were," he said. "You didn't need to know," Hill replied. "Respect shouldn't depend on who someone is." Sergeant Lopez looked at Daniels with disappointment. "Did you read him his rights?" Daniels shook his head. "Did he resist arrest?" Daniels stayed silent. Lopez turned to the general. "Sir, I'll call the chief myself. Please, we'll fix this." General Hill picked up his ID and papers from the desk. "Fix it?" he said softly. "It's already out there." Lopez looked confused. "What do you mean?" The general nodded. Toward the window. Outside, 2 news vans were parking. Reporters were stepping out with cameras. The video had gone viral. Someone from the crowd had uploaded it. It had spread across social media like wildfire. By now, millions had seen a young cop shove and arrest a peaceful old man. a hero. Daniels walked to the window and watched the reporters gather. His heart pounded. We didn't know," he whispered again. "I told you," Hill said. "You were making a mistake." Daniels turned to him. "Why didn't you say who you were?" Hill stared at him. "Why should I have to?" Daniels had no answer. A moment of silence filled the room. Even Ricky stayed quiet. The chief arrived minutes later, red-faced and angry, but the general didn't want revenge. He didn't ask for an apology on TV. He didn't shout. He just walked out of the station with his head held high. Outside, the cameras surrounded him. "General Hill, why were you arrested? Are you pressing charges? Do you feel disrespected by the police?" He raised a hand and spoke only one sentence. "I will speak when the time is right. But know this. How you treat others says more about you than them." The clip aired on every news channel. Daniels watched it from the break room that night. He saw himself on screen, shouting, grabbing, arresting a man who never raised his voice, and beside the video, the comments were pouring in. Disgraceful. That cop should be fired. How can they treat a hero like this? Daniels felt sick. He turned off the TV and sat down. For the first time since joining the force, he didn't feel powerful. He felt small and scared. The next morning, Officer Daniels didn't want to leave his apartment. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News alerts, social media tags, missed calls. He felt like the whole world had seen the video, because they had. He looked at his face on the screen. Angry, loud, pushing an old man into handcuffs. The old man? A decorated war hero. His name was now everywhere. General Marcus Hill. Every major news channel was talking about him. He served in Iraq, Afghanistan. He saved hundreds of lives. He trained young soldiers, and even police. The words hit Daniels like a punch to the stomach. He sat on his couch, hands shaking. The uniform he was once proud of now felt heavy and cold. He finally picked up his phone and saw a message from his mother. "Jack, what did you do?" He didn't reply. At the police station, things weren't any better. Other officers looked at him differently now. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered when he passed. He had been suspended, not fired, but close. The chief had called it serious misconduct. Even Officer Ricky, who used to follow Daniels around like a shadow, now stayed silent. Daniels sat alone in the locker room, staring at the floor. Then the door opened. Sergeant Lopez walked in with a tablet in his hand. "You should see this," he said, his voice serious. He handed the tablet to Daniels. It was a video, a special news report, titled, "Who is General Marcus Hill?" Daniels pressed play. The screen showed a young soldier running through dust and gunfire, carrying another, man on his back. Then a photo, a much younger General Hill shaking hands with the president. Narrator's voice. General Marcus Hill served 32 years in the U.S. Army. He led missions in war zones, protected civilians during crises, and trained thousands of soldiers. After retiring, he chose to help communities. His latest project, a program to train young police officers in leadership and respect. Daniels's hands began to sweat. The screen now showed a clip of General Hill in a classroom talking to a group of new officers. We must never judge someone by how they look. Real strength is shown by how we treat people, especially the ones we think are weak. Daniels paused the video. He stared at the screen, then looked at Sergeant Lopez. He was training. "Us?" Daniels asked, stunned. Lopez nodded slowly. "He helped build the very program we studied during our academy training." Daniels' heart dropped. He had arrested the same man who once shaped the rules he was supposed to follow. "I didn't." "No," Daniels said quietly. "That's the problem," Lopez replied. "You didn't ask. You just acted." That evening, another video appeared online. This time it was from General Hill himself. He sat in a chair, calm and strong, wearing a suit. The background was simple. No stage, no lights, no army badges. Just him. He looked into the camera and spoke slowly. Many people have asked me to speak. Some want anger, some want justice. But I want something else. Understanding. He continued. The officer who arrested me did not know who I was. That's clear. But here's the real truth. I didn't want him to. Because the problem is not about who I am. It's about how we treat people when we don't know who they are. Daniels watched every second of the video. He didn't blink. He didn't move. I didn't feel pain from the cuffs. I've had worse. But I felt something deeper. Disappointment. Because that young man wore a uniform like I once did. And in that moment, he forgot what it meant. But this isn't the end. This is a beginning, not for me, but for him. Daniels sat frozen. The screen faded to black. The last words hit him like thunder. I believe people can change. Even him. The internet exploded with reactions. But what shocked everyone more was what happened the next morning. General Hill made a public statement. He said he would not press charges, no court. No lawsuit. Instead, he wanted a private meeting with Officer Daniels, face to face. People were confused. Why not punish him? He humiliated you. But the general had one reply. Sometimes, a conversation can teach more than a punishment ever could. Daniels didn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned in bed, the words playing in his head again and again. He didn't know what the meeting would be like. Would the general yell at him? Would he test him? Or would he forgive him? News of the upcoming meeting between Officer Daniels and General Hill spread like wildfire. Every news channel, blog, and social media page was talking about it. People had questions. Will General Hill forgive him? Will Officer Daniels apologize? What will happen behind closed doors? The whole country was watching. Not just for drama, but for something deeper. Hope. Outside the police station, dozens of reporters waited with cameras. Bystanders gathered with signs. Some signs said, "Justice for General Hill." Others said, "Let the young man learn." Not everyone wanted punishment. Some wanted growth, but the pressure was high, especially on Daniels. Inside the building, he stood alone, wearing plain clothes. No badge, no gun, just a nervous heart. His hands trembled as he looked into the mirror. This time, he didn't see a strong officer. He saw a man who had made a mistake, a big one, and he didn't know if he could fix it. The door behind him opened. It was Sergeant Lopez. "He's here," Lopez said quietly. Daniels nodded. His mouth was dry. His chest was tight. He walked down the hallway step by step toward the meeting room. Every step felt heavy. Every second felt long. When he opened the door, there he was, General Marcus Hill. He stood tall, wearing a dark coat, hands behind his back, just like before. But this time, not in handcuffs. He turned and looked at Daniels. No anger, no smile, just silence. Daniels stepped forward. "Sir," he began, his voice shaky, I wanted to say I'm sorry." Hill didn't move. Daniels kept going. "I judged you. I didn't ask questions. I acted on pride. I embarrassed you in front of everyone. I embarrassed myself." He looked down. "I wish I could take it back, but I know I can't." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Hill finally spoke. "You know what hurt the most?" he asked. Daniels shook his head. Hill stepped closer. "It wasn't the handcuffs. It wasn't the shouting. It was the fact that you didn't even see me. You saw a car, a face, and you made up your mind." Daniels swallowed hard. "You're right. But," Hill said, "I've seen men change. I've led soldiers who made mistakes. I've trained officers who lost their way. The ones who grew were not the perfect ones. They were the ones who faced their failures." Daniels raised his eyes. "I want to change, sir. I really do." Hill studied his face. "Then start now," he said. Daniels looked confused. "Now?" Hill reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. I run a special program. It trains officers in leadership, self-control, and community service. Real training, the kind that changes minds, not just uniforms. He handed the paper to Daniels. "This is your chance," he said. Daniels took the paper with shaking hands. He read the title. Honor in the Uniform, 6-week intensive leadership program. His eyes widened. "You want me to join?" Hill nodded. "You need to understand people before you lead them. You made a mistake, but I'm giving you a path, not an escape." Daniels felt his throat tighten. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "No," Hill replied. "But if you finish it, if you earn it, maybe you will." The meeting ended without handshakes, without cameras, without drama. But it echoed, louder than any courtroom scene. When news of the meeting reached the public, reactions poured in. Some people were surprised. He's giving him another chance? Others were inspired. This is what true leadership looks like. Videos of General Hill's forgiveness went viral again. But this time, the message wasn't anger, it was growth. Meanwhile, Daniels began the program. Every day was hard. He worked with kids from poor neighborhoods. He cleaned up streets. He attended classes on anger, respect, and humility. And each day he changed, slowly, not just his actions, but his heart. He began to see people, really see them. He smiled more. He listened more. He learned. One day, while walking through a local school where he now volunteered, a young boy ran up to him. "You're the cop from the video," the boy said. Daniels froze, but the boy smiled. "My dad said you messed up, but now you're trying to fix it." Daniels knelt down. "That's true," he said softly. The boy nodded. "That's cool." He ran off. Daniels stood there in silence. Tear slipped down his cheek. 6 weeks later, Officer Daniels stood in front of a mirror once again. But this time, he wasn't nervous. He was different. He had completed General Hill's leadership program. He had cleaned parks, mentored kids, spoken at schools, and learned more about people than he ever did in the police academy. He didn't just wear a uniform anymore. He understood what it meant. And today was his final day in the program. There was going to be a small ceremony, a private event where he would get a certificate, nothing big, no cameras. But life had something else planned. That morning, Daniel stopped at a gas station. He was in plain clothes, just picking up water and snacks. But outside the store, he saw a group of teenagers, loud, rough, yelling at an old man, sitting on a bench. They were mocking him, laughing at his clothes. The old man had dirty hands, torn shoes, and a bag full of cans. He was homeless. Daniels paused. The old Daniels might have ignored it, maybe even judged the man himself, but not now. He walked up quietly and said, "Hey, is there a problem here?" The teens turned. One of them rolled his eyes. "Mind your business." Daniels pulled out his badge, just flashed it. He didn't raise his voice. "He didn't threaten anyone. I'm asking you to leave this man alone." The teens hesitated. Then they slowly backed off, muttering under their breath. When they were gone, Daniels turned to the old man. "Are you okay, sir?" The man looked up. His eyes were tired, but kind. "Thank you," he said softly. "Most people just walk away." Daniels nodded. "I used to, but I've changed." He handed the man a bottle of water and some money from his pocket. The man smiled. Daniels smiled back. He didn't know it. But someone had recorded the whole thing. That night, a video started trending online again. Same officer who arrested. General Hill, now standing up for a homeless man. The clip showed Daniels calmly stepping in, defending the man, and showing kindness. People were shocked. Some didn't believe it at first, but others saw something real in his face. Comments poured in. "He really changed. This is what second chances can do." General Hill was right to believe in him. At the certificate ceremony, General Hill stood in front of Daniels once more. This time, they weren't in a police station. They were in a quiet hall, surrounded by people who had seen the full journey. Daniels stood tall, but humble. Hill looked at him and said, "You were tested, son. Not in a classroom, not by me, but by life. And you passed." He handed Daniels the certificate. But more than that, he handed him something else. A handshake. Daniels took it, holding back tears. "Thank you," he said. "You earned it," Hill replied. Outside the ceremony, a reporter waited. "Officer, Daniels, people are calling your story a redemption arc. What do you say to that?" Daniels paused. Then he said, "I made a mistake. But I didn't want my story to end there. I wanted it to begin there." The clip went viral, again, not for drama this time, but for hope. Life seemed peaceful for a while. Officer Daniels was now back on duty, not with pride, but with purpose. He patrolled with care, spoke kindly to people, and even trained younger officers using the lessons he learned. General Hill had become a quiet hero. He refused interviews, avoided the spotlight, and focused on helping young leaders grow. But then, something happened, something no one expected. One morning, Daniels was walking through the station when Sergeant Lopez called him in. "There's a situation," Lopez said, voice serious. "A hostage scene downtown, gunmen inside a bank, and—" The negotiator called out sick. Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Why are you telling me?" Lopez looked straight at him. "Because the man inside is asking for you." Daniels froze. "What?" "He said your name. He's angry. He doesn't trust the police, but he saw you online. Said if anyone comes in, it should be you." Daniels couldn't believe it. "I'm not a negotiator." "You are now," Lopez said. "Let's go." Minutes later, Daniels arrived at the scene. Police cars surrounded the area. Red and blue lights flashed. People watched from behind. Barricades. Inside the bank, a man held a small group of people, including a child, at gunpoint. Daniels put on a vest, stepped forward, and picked up the megaphone. "This is Officer Daniels. I'm here. I just want to talk." There was silence. Then a voice from inside shouted, "If you come in alone." The team hesitated, but Daniels nodded. "I'll go." Inside the bank, the air was tense. The gunman was in his 40s. His hands shook. His eyes were red. Daniels slowly raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help." The man yelled, "Help? Like they helped me when they took my house? When no one listened?" Daniels took a step closer. "I know what it feels like to be ignored," he said. "I made mistakes too. Big ones. But someone gave me a chance to change." The man glared at him. Daniels continued, "I didn't deserve that chance, but I earned it. You can too, but not this way." The gunman lowered the weapon a little. "You don't know me," he whispered. Daniels nodded. "Then let me." Seconds passed. Tension filled the room. Finally, the man dropped the gun. He cried. Daniels moved quickly, took the weapon, and signaled the officers outside. Everyone was safe. News spread fast. Daniels, the same officer who once made headlines for the wrong reasons, had just peacefully ended a hostage crisis. Reporters tried to call him, but he didn't want fame. He had one call to make. That evening, Daniels visited General Hill. He knocked on the door. Hill opened it slowly, carefully. But something was off. His smile was weak, his face pale. Daniels noticed. "Sir, are you okay?" Hill hesitated, then said the words Daniels never expected to hear. "I have cancer." The air went still. Daniels felt his heart sink. Hill continued softly. "Stage 3. I've known for a few months. I didn't want it to distract you." Daniels sat down, speechless. I thought you were fine, he whispered. Hill smiled gently. Some battles. We fight silently. Daniels looked at him, eyes filled with tears. Is there anything I can do? Hill nodded. Yes. Keep going. Teach others. Show them what you've learned. Because I may not be here much longer. But the mission doesn't end with me. Daniels leaned forward. It won't end, sir. I promise. Weeks passed. General Hill's condition grew worse. The strong, proud man who once stood tall before armies now walked slower, spoke softer, and smiled more gently. But even as his body weakened, his spirit remained unshaken. He continued meeting young officers, sharing stories, offering wisdom. He never complained, never asked, "Why me?" He simply said, "We all leave this world. What matters is what we leave behind." And he had left something powerful behind. A changed man. Officer Daniels visited him every weekend. They would sit on the porch, sipping tea, talking about life, not law. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they said nothing at all. Daniels began, writing down everything Hill shared, stories, lessons, memories. One day Daniels asked him, "Do you ever regret anything?" Hill looked at the sky. "Only the time I wasted being angry," he said. "Anger burns fast, but love lasts longer." Daniels wrote it down, word for word. He knew these weren't just conversations. They were pieces of a legacy. Then, the day came. A cold Sunday morning. Daniels got the call. General Marcus Hill had passed away peacefully in his sleep. He didn't suffer. He didn't cry. He simply let go. The news broke the hearts of thousands. Soldiers, police officers, families, students. People from all walks of life came forward with stories. He helped my son. He taught me to believe in myself. He forgave a mistake that others would have punished forever. A national ceremony was held in his honor. Flags flew at half-mast. Old war friends saluted with trembling hands. Tears were shed by strangers, and standing in front of the crowd was Daniels. He wore his uniform, but this time, not just as an officer, but as a student, a friend, and a legacy carrier. He walked up to the podium, took a deep breath, and said, "I once arrested a man I didn't understand, but he didn't punish me. He taught me. He showed me how to serve people, not just protect them, how to lead, not just follow orders, and most of all, how to forgive. Because forgiveness saves more lives than force ever could." The crowd stood in silence. Then, applause. Not for Daniels, but for the man who changed him. Months later, something beautiful happened. A new police training program was launched across the country. Its name? The Hill Code. Honor, respect, forgiveness. Guess who was the lead trainer? Officer Jack Daniels. He stood in classrooms teaching new recruits the very lessons he once ignored. On the first day of every session, he started with one sentence. "I'm not here to teach you how to be a cop. I'm here to show you how to be a human being in a uniform." And on the wall behind him, framed in gold, was a photo of General Hill, smiling, still leading, even in silence. Years had passed. Officer Jack Daniels was no longer just an officer. He had become a mentor, a speaker, and even a writer. His small notebook filled with General Hill's words had turned into a best-selling book. Lessons from a Man in Handcuffs. It was read in schools, training centers, even prisons. People didn't just read the story, they felt it. One quiet evening, Daniels stood in front of a group of young cadets, fresh uniforms, bright eyes, unshaped minds. He asked, "What do you think power looks like?" One cadet answered, "Guns." Another said, "Fear." Daniels shook his head. Then he walked over to a chair, sat down, and opened a faded old envelope. He pulled out a photo. It was a photo of General Hill, in plain clothes, laughing with, children holding a book. Daniels said, "This man had more power than anyone I ever met." And he never raised his voice, never showed off, never broke anyone down. He built people up. Silence. Then he added, "Real power is when you change someone's life, without needing a badge to do it." That night, Daniels walked outside, the academy. It was raining softly. He looked up at the sky, smiled, and whispered, "I kept the promise, sir." He turned to walk away, but just for a second, he felt like someone was walking beside him. No words, no shadow, just a presence. Like the spirit of a man who had once been wronged, but chose to forgive. And that choice changed everything.